football game for the Pac-12 Conference in 2015. So it is great to be back in the saddle alongside Glenn Parker. Jill Savage is also with us down on the sideline here at Autzen. We're glad to have you with us. And Glenn, I thought that was very fitting to listen to those clips from just several months ago, because what Mark Helfrich and his coaches have talked about this week is that congratulations stuff is all over with.
Yeah, anytime you have a good season or a bad one, you've got to put it behind you. You have to have a very short memory in football. The Ducks need, the expectations are high. They got to get moving forward.
Well, the congratulations were well earned on the fabulous season that took the Ducks to the national championship game. That was the first big thing, was to win the North and then win the conference title.
Yeah, avenge that loss to Arizona. Of course, the Heisman for Marcus Mariota. First Heisman in Oregon's history was huge. And then to win the Rose Bowl and dominate a Florida State team.
And then to fall short in the title game to Ohio State. Of course, Marcus Mariota is so much the story of Oregon football, very much the story this week. He's here today completing his, it's a Glenn Parker-like whirlwind tour of North America for Mariota. But that's the question for Oregon football, Glenn. The fans want to know the quarterback situation.
Yeah, you know, is it Jeff Locke right now? He's dominating the position all through spring. But as you get into fall, of course, there's always going to be that question. Transfers, recruits, who's coming in, and that battle is good for your team.
Right. So Vernon Adams, of course, is not an Oregon student right now, so he's not a part of things today, but a lot of other competitors are. We will see the Oregon Ducks in their spring football game and kick things off by hearing from Mark Helfrich when we come back. On the field now with Jill Savage.
Thank you very much, Coach. One of the best years in Oregon football history last season. What can you do to make sure that there's not a drop-off going into this season?
Just consistently work harder to improve. You know, that's what we're all about. That's our whole existence, kind of what we reinforce all the time. And there's a bunch of guys that are out there to prove themselves today, and hopefully they'll just relax and play.
How's life been without Marcus Mariota, turning that new page, getting a new chapter of Oregon football?
Well, you have to do that, and if it's losing one guy or multiple guys every year, there's things that I think people don't realize how big are, you know, that aren't just that one guy that you lose, and our culture, our chemistry has to take over, and it has.
What are you looking for here today?
I'm looking to honor the troops. I know you can tell by our get-up. What is it? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, so we're trying to flatter the men and women that have served our country, and then have a lot of fun, hopefully stay healthy.
Thank you so much for your time. We'll talk to you later.
All right, thanks, Joe.
Ted?
Now you saw Marcus Mariota briefly. The Oregon team today, Don Pelham, the defensive coordinator, Scott Frost, the offensive coordinator, talking to us about this game, and they were really strong about referencing. In fact, Scott Frost talked to us about the last time the Ducks played in the BCS championship game and how hard, there's Scott Frost, how hard Chip Kelly pushed them that next spring so that there was no hangover.
Right, and any time in football when you have a great year, the worry is that you will have that hangover. Take a breakaway.
That's Thomas Tyner gets the first carry, and of course the Ducks coming right out. The teams have been split and drafted by the coaching staffs. There is a Pathway roster and an Oregon roster. Of course, that's named for the Pathway Oregon program, which the coaches here support so well, helping provide educations for lower income students in the state of Oregon.
Taylor Ali quarterbacking the Oregon football Oregon team. Now, has the red on, so he can't be touched, which is tough to run a zone read if you can't tackle the quarterback.
So there, Oregon trying to spread the field, but it's nice to see Braylon Addison back after missing last season.
Yeah, just that, having that weapon out there again will be great for the Ducks. And going back to what we were talking about, that hangover, having been a part of Super Bowl teams.
Yes.
You have to, when you can go back-to-back or back-to-back and be as good as Oregon has been, it says a lot about the coaching staff, their focus, their continuity, and what they input to these kids, and the attitude that becomes contagious and not just expected in a program. They've done it here.
So Ali here trying to get away, and finally just off the hands of Evan Bayless. So fourth down one not held by Darren Carrington.
That's a rare drop for Carrington. He's a real weapon for him, obviously.
One thing, Glenn, as we'll see the format for the game, the teams are playing 10-minute quarters in the first half and then running clock in the second half. With traditional scoring, again, the teams were divided in a draft by the coaching staff. So therefore, for example, Royce Freeman is on the opposite side from Thomas Tyner. The quarterbacks, of course, get split. Jeff Locke now coming out, and he's got on his side today Royce Freeman, Byron Marshall. And right away, the pitch back, and he's got his man. Locke delivers it to Marshall.
So both sides come out, a little bit of trick play here and there, a little flea flicker on an inside zone. Locke with the ball deep to Marshall.
And that was a welcome to Oregon football for a newcomer freshman corner, Ugo Amadi. So many things we'll talk about as the day goes along. Freeman strung out. Of course, the Ducks last spring, you were worried about their receivers. Who was Mariota going to throw to? They're all back now. The receiving core this year, it's all back, but the defensive backfield, the corners in particular.
Yeah,
that's a position to look.
That's correct. That second half of your defense, that back level, and of course, you know, you can hide it with schemes, you can hide it with personnel up front, but eventually in close games they'll get found out. So they're going to really be looking for that next group of guys to step up.
No, that's something that Oregon will talk about. I don't know how much we'll see it, well, but we did see it there. But they've used Freeman this spring more in a slot or to get him out in the backfield. And Glenn, they say it's just simply to allow Freeman and Tyner to be on the field at the same time.
Yeah, and so just how many weapons can you get out there? How much can you get them the ball? Now the hard part is can you get them all enough touches, because Freeman really revolutionized, and I shouldn't, that offense last year, because they were able to go back to that inside zone they had been lacking the last few years. And that was a very physical play out of Royce Freeman that allowed him to do so.
Aiden Schneider with the extra point. Well, this was such a difference maker for Oregon football. Royce Freeman, it's the green, the first points. Well, that's shot here. When you see Autzen Stadium like this for a spring football game, it gives you an idea of what Oregon football has achieved, how proud Oregon is of this program, how great it's been for the Pac-12 conference. No one's kidding anybody. See that win percentage, and it was really Glenn, to me, I mean, let's face it, what's going on right now in Chicago is a big part of it. When you think that the Pac-12 had 7 of the first 20 players selected in the NFL draft Thursday night.
Yeah, you know, that's a very good indicator of the health of the conference and how good it was across the board, the depth from top to bottom. And Oregon, of course, leading the charge when you saw that win percentage over the last 5 years. And, you know, for some of us, you know, we can remember back when Oregon wasn't good. And it's been so long now they've been on top.
Are you really that old?
No, but I've heard stories.
Well, there's a nice throw just off Bayless's fingertips. That's a good throw by Taylor Ali. Close to a big connection.
Yeah, just didn't quite set his feet to throw, but it was very put right there. You can win with that one. You gotta come up with it.
Thomas Tyner when he got hit on third down. Of course, Oregon on the defensive line very happy. That's Canton Kamatule, an incoming freshman.
Well, it's a little easier to play off defense when your quarterbacks can't run in a zone read offense. So
that's right.
It's going to help the defense a little bit.
But we're going to see players like that today. There are a couple of them. Kamatule is one of them. He is an early and mid. So he is an incoming freshman, but able to participate in spring ball. There's another significant player competing for one of the quarterback spots, Ugo Amadi, the same way. He's been playing a lot for Don Pelham's defense as an early admit.
It's such an opportunity to get ahead of the other freshmen, not only that are incoming on your squad, but around the conference. It's a chance to get in, learn that offense, get used to going to class so that when season does start, that they're on the quarter system here. When it does happen, you're used to it. You're ready. You're used to that schedule.
Well, the good news about this when you watch Royce Freeman for Oregon football, Glenn, is because the structure is such he has to play 2 more years here. Because this guy, what a difference maker he was for Oregon football.
Yeah, he's explosive. He has speed. He's got strength to run vertical and run the inside zone. And he was a game changer for them because, as I had said, they'd gotten a little bit away from inside zone. They'd been running outside zone, a lot of wide stuff because they had so much speed. But they had lost their way. They got seduced by speed, I believe. And when they got that back, when they got Royce Freeman running north and south, you can see the numbers across the board for their offense. They got their identity back a little bit, I think.
And Glenn, that graphic there goes to what you referenced. As after the previous play was blown dead, Lockheed passing the line of scrimmage, Freeman gets a handoff again. But Oregon found a way last year to get weapons. They moved Marshall outside, and he was a brilliant receiver leading the team. And that's what Scott Frost hints they've been working at with Freeman, is trying to line him up more in a slot on occasion so that he can be on the field with Marshall and Tyner.
Right, more weapons, big game here.
Now this is Oregon space. And taking it home. Well, Charles Nelson, who has been moved to defensive back this spring, got a chance to be offensive.
Found a huge hole in the defense, middle of the field. Safeties had split. Nice job finding him. Green is a pathway, Oregon pathway, is putting some offense together here today.
Now that's a wrinkle I didn't think we were going to see. Charles Nelson, they've been working him at corner again, having to fill some spots there. And getting Nelson and his other freshman, Hugo Amadi, some time there where I say they've both been very good tacklers, but this is Nelson on the offense.
That's what you like to see. Wide receivers out helping each other, blocking down the field for you. Dwayne Stanford right there. Hands are inside tight, so there's no possibility of a hold because the official's right on it. That's one receiver helping another.
So, of course, Oregon lost a terrific cornerback, Ifo Ekpreolomu, who got hurt as well. And this weekend, when there's so much joy for people like a Marcus Mariota, then there's that tough part, because as we sit here and speak live, Ifo Ekpreolomu still has not been drafted. And they're midway through the 5th round. The Ty Griffin is the quarterback here for the Ducks now. Brett Hundley, by the way, was just selected middle of the 5th round by the Green Bay Packers.
And he's
another long wait.
He had a long wait, but they can help fuel you as a player.
And Thomas Tyner runs it across midfield, gets inside the 45.
Thomas Tyner, another explosive back. Oregon just loaded with offensive weapons again. But that, you know, that long wait, and it is hard, and I know, I mean, I've been through the process. It can really help fuel you, though. And you hate to hear that because you want to be drafted high, we all do. But that chip on your shoulder can really help you when you get in camp.
All right, that was a backwards throw. This is a long forwards throw, and that's a big play. Braylon Addison to Darren Carrington.
How about that throw by Braylon Addison? That was beautifully put out. He drew his man open. That's what I like. And this is a little lateral back. Nice form, steps into it, and throws his man open. That's a nice ball.
And that's really nice to see for Braylon Addison because, of course, he is coming back. I believe that ball was covered by Griffin. Well, actually, it was not. And instead, it was recovered by Danny Mattingly. So the fumbled snap and the dreaded red zone turnover.
Well, we take a look. The snap's high. Now, one thing, Hronis Grasu, the former starting center and draft pick of the Bears, you had him so long, you take that for granted. Now you've got to break in a new center. And what is tough about being a center in any offense is having to get the ball back the right way and correct while you're making your calls, while you're making your decisions, and while you're stepping. It's why it's such a valued position on any football team, and they're going to have some growing pains trying to find that replacement for Hronis Grasu.
I joked with Scott Frost about that. I said, I'm sure you're tired of answering that question. You'll be getting all spring like, oh, there. Well, speaking of which, there's a two-pointer. And that was exactly what I said to Scott Frost. So tell me, please, who is going to be your center? He started laughing. But he said, you used the words you used. You take it for granted.
You really do. And it's just one of those things that is, because when it works, it's seamless. Unfortunately, when it doesn't, as you can see here, Pisarcik.
And it's a competition. That's the point where, to answer the question, there were 3 or 4 that are competing. There is no, or at least no declared leader right now in that position.
Right, and so there's Jake Pisarcik right there. And he was the guilty party on that last one. You saw it fly over the quarterback's head. When you're a center, you've got to get moving. You got to go fast. You've got a call to make, and now you have to snap that ball and move at the same time, and your adrenaline can get going. That's what happens.
That's the difference in football today, especially in the college game. Like you said, the center's supposed to be making calls, right? Quarterbacking the line.
Right.
But now you have to snap the ball 4 or 5 yards accurately every time. And we have another new quarterback in the game, and this is another incoming freshman. This is Travis Johnson from Servite High in Anaheim. And again, one of the handful of early admits to Oregon that have been able to get here and participate in spring ball. Now the other, since we've seen now 4 different quarterbacks, the other obvious name that hangs over Oregon football is Vernon Adams. And just to be very clear, Vernon Adams is not a student at the University of Oregon. He is trying to graduate at Eastern Washington, which would then enable him to pursue a graduate transfer. But as of this date, he is still a student at Eastern Washington, thus not participating at all in Oregon football. But this is a name that could be a big one come August. And Vernon Adams had huge games, including against Oregon State.
His style of play will remind Oregon fans of a Jeremiah Masoli.
Yeah, you said that.
More in that
It's a good one.
Yeah. Not as tall as Marcus Mariota. Smaller, more active maybe.
So again, this is it's not new, but it's fairly recent addition to college athletics has been the graduate transfer situation, and there are rules and procedures in place. So therefore, Vernon Adams again is not at Oregon. It has been reported that he has been around the program a little bit during spring, although he can't participate in anything. Of course, that's anticipatory, but all of it hinges on the first issue, which is that he needs to be a graduate of Eastern Washington. Thus, the competition has been all between the returning Oregon quarterbacks as well as an incomer like Travis Johnson.
And so far,
Dales has gotten himself quite a few touches here in the first quarter.
Yeah, we've seen drops, and that's just probably a little nerves. You're in a lot of these guys, it's the first real competitive situation that they'll have been in, or it's the first one in a long time that they played last year. So you get a little nerves going. You've got a crowd here. This is real game atmosphere.
Johnson firing it. Trying to hit Carrington.
Coach Frost will have a discussion with him about that throw, I'm sure. That's one of those ones you don't make.
Well, here's what we touched on, an extraordinary year. It was just a great season for Pac-12 football in 2014, and here's part of the proof of it. 7 of the top 20, 9 overall in the first round. Interestingly enough, the Pac-12 school that, as we speak right now, that has had the most players drafted is Stanford. They've had 5 players selected as the NFL draft is proceeding through the 5th round.
As you look at those names, Leonard Williams, in my mind, the best player in the draft, fell all the way to the 6th, so that was a steal. But Andres Pete probably going to play right tackle for the Saints. They have a man they drafted a few years ago, Teron Armstead, who will play the left side.
Of course, Oregon had 2 first-rounders. Eric Armstead going to San Francisco as the 2nd first-rounder. And the guy that we saw him last year, and I remember I said it to you because I walked on the field during warm-ups and stood next to him. And Danny Shelton blew me away when I saw what he was able to do in terms of agility and movement out of that body.
Yeah, and then
remember, and so I'm not surprised. I was not surprised by that draft pick at all.
No, he was a guy that everybody had tabbed. He was that interior line run stuffer, and also very active sideline to sideline when you watch him on film. I also remember we were standing there, and I said, "Hey, look at that!" And you look down and you looked at the size of his calves.
Yes, it was humbling, slightly.
Like he was walking around with 2 cantaloupes.
For me, not for Glenn.
Those things.
All right, Lockheed's been praised heavily, and again, they'll blow this play dead now that he's passed the line. But Jeff Lockheed, the most experienced of the returners and the contenders, and he has been given an awful lot of praise by Mark Helfrich.
You know, he played in this offense in high school down in the Bay Area. He's a very athletic. He's got, you know, it could be as simple for him as a few games of playing with all the talent around him rather than doing it in mop-up duty at the end of games when he's got guys that aren't used to playing together. He might shine. He might become the next great Oregon quarterback simply because he's going to have his chance now to be running with all the talent on the field.
Well, the Ducks keep using Nelson out there as a wide receiver. Royce Freeman getting a fair number of carries and touches in the first quarter.
I would think we're only going to see him for limited. They know what he can do. They know what he brings. So I don't know how much more we'll really see of Royce Freeman as this game moves along.
Scott Frost admitted, he said we're trying to be careful with a guy like Royce now. He's earned his stripes. Bad start on that play. By the way, on the draft thing, there's Scott Frost, who runs the offense. Oregon was the best team in the conference last year, champions deservedly so, earned in every way. The team that had 4 defensive players chosen in the first 44 selections was Washington. 4 defensive players.
And they had a really, really good defense last year, but it goes to show even with, you know, 4 guys picked that high, you still have to have 11. You got to have 11. And then as talented as they were, they still weren't the best defense.
And it's interesting because Oregon, that's talking about this forever with the Ducks, you know, their defense doesn't get an awful lot of attention given the style of football and the explosion of this offense. And their defense, Armstead was drafted high, but doesn't usually have a ton. Oh, there's a nice move by Freeman, and he breaks it down to the 15. Now there's that diversity again. Freeman catching the ball out of the backfield. So we'll pick up on that topic when we come back. First quarter finished of the Oregon spring game. Winning the conference championship, in Oregon earned a spot in the first college football playoff in the Rose Bowl, fitting in the matchup of the brilliant quarterbacks Winston and Mariota. But it was a day the Ducks dominated.
And they dominated offensively and defensively. It was, I think, for Pac-12 fans, certainly fun to watch and a point of pride.
let's go down to the sideline. Look at that little piece of jewelry.
It's not a bad piece of jewelry that you have here, Ted. They are handing these out to the players today. I was there at the Rose Bowl. What a fun day. Of course, they're trying to honor the military here. They're trying to put on a show for the fans, but also they're going to be taking home a nice piece of jewelry today. Very well deserved as the first team in the first ever college football playoff to win that Rose Bowl. And not a bad piece of jewelry out of it, guys.
Jill, you rock diamonds well.
Sweet, thanks.
All right, here's the second quarter beginning. And that's Kenai Benoit, sophomore out of Phoenix. And Benoit, one of those running backs. This is the, now as you referenced them, we're going to get to that part of spring games that mean a lot to players like Kenai Benoit to get a chance to play.
Get a chance to play, be on the field with your teammates, a chance to show the coaches, maybe win. Some guys are just trying to win a spot on the travel squad. Some guys are trying to win that spot as a backup or a starter. A little bit of a bad snap. There's a great view. See those offensive linemen, hands are on, they're Velcroed. They're completely covering guys up. It's easy to be a running back when those guys do that job.
So Schneider will kick the extra point here for the Green. Well, the Green teams come out storming. 3 touchdowns with Jeff Locke engineering things. Here's where Oregon ranked in the nation, top 10 in 5 out of the 6 big categories.
And when you look at that 10-plus yard plays, that's just chunks of yardage they were getting, and they were first in the nation there. And that shows you how efficient the offense was, because in reality, what's most important to them is first downs. They don't get to third down that often. They were 8th and 3rd downs, but they don't get there that often.
Exactly.
Taylor Alley back for quarterback.
All right, Taylor Alley back for the goal now as possession goes again to Addison. Back to Taylor Alley. Of course, well, they haven't blown the whistle on that one. Even though he's wearing the red jersey, I said, okay, if you're going to run that kind of play, you may take the bump.
This is nice. They have one over route, and this was designed to come back to Taylor Alley the whole way.
I'm intrigued, Glenn, because we referenced early, what television has done. It's, I think, again, something we've been very much a part of the last couple of years. You see it takes a lot of the football out of the spring games because people don't want other people to see.
That's right.
It's a strict competitiveness.
So what you're seeing with all these trick plays, that's offensive coordinator's way of saying, all right, every defensive coordinator in the Pac-12, here's all the crazy stuff we can do. It just puts stuff on their plate. Will they ever use it? Probably not, but you got to put it out there. So you're right. They don't show much, but what they do show is with the design, knowing that the people, their opponents are watching.
Another young Duck, Tony Brooks James, had the previous carry, and here goes Addison, and there goes Addison. What a lift it will be for the Ducks in the fall, and Braylon Addison continues on his very recent. It's just been recent where they feel like he's getting it back.
Yeah, it takes so long to come back from injury, and good straight arm here. And you see the speed, the explosiveness that Braylon Addison has. If they can bring him back, remember, you had Byron Marshall last year, a running back that moved into the wide receiver spot. He had over 1,000 yards receiving. What a great 1-2 punch. You get those two guys with Carrington out there. Again, we referenced just the weapons on this offense.
Right. Coaches were very, I think, honest with us, saying that when the spring first started, Braylon might have been a step slow, maybe didn't have quite the explosion coming back from this injury, but the last short bit of spring here, they feel like they've seen it.
When you have a serious injury, it's more the mental hurdle to get over it is sometimes what holds you back more than anything. The doctors are telling you you're plenty strong. You go in the weight room, you're plenty strong, but mentally you just don't burst the way you did. And I think what happened to him, and from the sounds of it, that mental hurdle has been cleared. He knows now he can go, and we certainly saw it on that touchdown.
And of course, what Braylon Addison also brought to the Ducks and what he could bring back to them in 15 is great special teams play. Great kick return play. Now, we don't see that in the spring game. As a famous former Duck quarterback. It's got to be a weird feeling for him to hear that. Watches. And he's now going to join a list. It's been something so impressive when you come to Oregon football.
Is declined, second down.
The last few years, it's something we've seen with other great programs. USC comes to mind right away in this conference, where the former players come back. When they had their bye weeks in the pros, they come back.
Yeah, and this is a place that certainly is that way, you know. And it's not, in reality, it's not the easiest place to get compared to LA to get to. But they come back. They're welcomed. They love it here.
Oh, that was the crowd could see that one coming. As Benoit and that ball dumped in by Morgan Mahalik, who's a Northern Californian, second year in the Oregon program. There's Chris Cisse, another player that's competing for jobs in the secondary that has, in the coach's views, had a strong spring. Mahalik is
He did a great job there, just knowing where the pressure was coming from, avoiding it, and delivering a nice ball.
Yeah. Well, he's got some pedigree alongside another player in the conference, Jared Goff, the Cal quarterback. Marin Catholic High School, just north of the Golden Gate Bridge. Well, we're not seeing special teams as started on that one, Glenn, in this game. But say, here's another part of Oregon's success that doesn't get credited. Along with Florida State, Oregon, the only two teams in major college football, the last 6 years have not allowed a kick return or punt return touchdown. 6 years they haven't allowed one. And the Ducks themselves, and that's where Addison comes in, have scored 19 of those touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, that's not only is that a huge number of points in your favor, but think of it's the hidden yardage in a football game that doesn't really show up when you talk about offense, and you wonder, well, or your defense. Well, if you're always facing a long field, it's going to be harder to score, and that's when you have good coverage teams. That's what those teams are facing against you, long fields all the time.
Tony Brooks-James getting the carry. So as we wind into the second quarter of this game, here Scott Frost is starting to move in different personnel on offense. The funny thing about Oregon, even though it's a shorter quarter and they'll have running time in the second half, they'll still run 1,000 plays.
Oh yeah,
it's amazing.
They'll be plenty tired by the time this thing's over.
10-minute quarters here in the first half, and then running time is the format for the second half. There'll be a 10-minute break.
It's got to be so frustrating to be a defender and not be able to hit him. Ty Griffin is ready to run at any moment, and you just can't put your mitts on him.
Was there always a red jersey on a quarterback when you played? I'll be back to your Arizona days.
Well, we ran what we called many people called the wish and shoot. It was supposed to be a run and shoot, but we just wished we could shoot. We were usually shot ourselves in the foot. But our quarterback was live because
he was live. Okay.
Yeah, for the most part, simply because it was part of our offense. We were running option.
Ty Griffin, well, as a man out there, let's see, is that going to be ruled a catch? I believe so.
That's Charles Nelson playing DB.
Yes, it is.
Kept his eye on the ball. What a great job adjusting to that ball to get the interception.
All right, so Charles Nelson has caught it both ways today. He's caught 2 passes, including a touchdown. Here he catches one from the other side. Off a team that played for the national championship, the Oregon Ducks losing their longtime center, Ramas Grasu. Eric Dargan was their leading tackler last season. 95 tackles, he had 7 picks. Armstead was a first rounder. Fisher was drafted very highly yesterday. Marcus Mariota, who has gone from Honolulu to Nashville to Eugene in the last 48 hours.
That's a whirlwind tour. But I'll tell you what, I bet there's very few places he'd rather be than right here, right now. Being with his team and where he stands.
So Morgan Mahala continuing on. Mariota was
showing a little of that flight fatigue.
Yeah, that's right. But I think it was very true. It was obvious. It was very true to Marcus Mariota that he chose to be in Honolulu, and understanding and acknowledging how significant his presence is to his state.
You know,
it's a major thing.
Major. It's a huge point of pride for the Hawaiians, and for those who, you know, they look at that decision, why wasn't he in Chicago? Family is so very important to him, and we've seen that through the course of his career, how much he talked about family, and how you saw it with his acceptance at the Heisman Trophy Awards. You know, I think it was a great decision by him to be there.
You think about a couple of years ago, Glenn, when we came here, and he was, I think it was his first year starting, and we had a chance to meet him and talk with him the day before a game, and you get through the story about him deciding to come here, even though at the same time they were recruiting another quarterback named Manziel.
That's right. And
turned out, we all know, of course, he didn't come here. But you think about where, and you just think about where they are today, both of them. And Marcus Mariota to win a Heisman, to be so well regarded here by these people that kind of know him for 3 years.
And it shows too about his level of maturity, and the fact that he chose to come here regardless of the fact that they were recruiting other quarterbacks, that he was going to have to fight to become a starter. That shows you a lot about him, and that's why he's a high draft pick. That's why he's where he is at, because people, NFL teams, when they vet, they realize he's a leader, he's a fighter, and you don't have to be rah-rah. And I think they learned that when really studying into Marcus Mariota.
I couldn't help, this is just my opinion, but I couldn't help but think over the last 2 weeks there was an awful lot of what we lived through 17 years ago, Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf, with the quarterback decision that had to be made by 2 NFL teams the other night. And there's not at all to say that Marcus Mariota is going to be Peyton Manning someday. That's a very high bar to reach. But in terms of the decision that had to be made this week.
Yeah, 2 guys very, very close. 2 guys, and there were differences between the 2 that were similar as well when they talk about the screening process, looking at players coming out of college. It'll be interesting. See how that all plays out.
And he's getting his last moments of relaxation before he goes to Nashville and has to, of course, Oregon, and I need to find this out, when Oregon's schools finish, because of course that has been something, because Oregon does go a little later, so it does keep these players from their NFL teams a little longer. Yeah, June, right? June is when school ends here.
So. Yeah, they're on the quarter system here. They start a little later, they go a little longer. They'll end in June, and then he's allowed to go to his NFL team, which I think is...
I saw it actually, I think it did not help, believe it or not, Michael James, the former running back here, when he went to his first NFL training camp. He was a little behind the curve because he got there. He missed all of the OTAs and mini camps.
Yeah, and that's a fairly recent rule that they put in.
Tony Brooks James, who is fast. And speaking of LaMichael James, there's a lot of, here in Oregon, there's a lot of comparisons when people watch Brooks James and they've seen him a little bit scout team most of last year. They think there's a chance he could be a LaMichael James type of player.
Remains first down.
Yeah, physical. There's some physical traits when you look at them. Size, their speed, and the way they run. Jill, you've got something on this for us.
Well, yeah, it's not only just other people telling everybody that Tony Brooks James is a little LaMichael-esque. His coaches in high school were telling him, you need to look at Oregon. DeAnthony Thomas and LaMichael James, they're the type of running back that you are. And the coaches, when he got in here, he was banged up a little bit, but when he was fully healthy, they were starting to tell each other, listen, you got to watch this kid. You have to see what he is able to do in practice. And they've said that about it seemingly every Oregon running back that comes through here. They just have a stable of guys that are able to come in here and produce right away.
There's Carrington getting the catch, and that's good, as Jill said, because the running backs here have been very much in a mold, and that's why Freeman to me was so significant, because he broke the mold.
Yeah, if anything, he went back to the LeGarrette Blunts, the heavy inside runner that they needed, but also because of their pace of play, because they're moving so fast, you need a stable of backs. You need more than 3 or 4 wide receivers, because you're going to be going so fast paced that you have to give guys a break. Some of their running backs last year, Thomas Steiner had another good year. As you said, though, Royce Freeman really was I think the guy that helped Thomas Steiner's game, because then you could move him around and he could do different things. Royce Freeman came in as a true freshman out of Imperial, California, and just lit it up, because not only because of the burst and just the go straightaway speed, but the fact he can run through tackles.
Brooks James did not get any carries from scrimmage last year. So Benoit on the carry. Benoit did get 7 carries, but you know, you look back and you say what Oregon has coming back. Freeman is back, Tyner is back, even Byron Marshall, who ran for almost 400 yards, is back. But you do forget that Mariota gained almost 1,000 yards on the ground. Gained almost 1,000. That's not coming back. Big flag comes flying in there. So while we see Jeff Locke, Glenn, I thought Mark Helfrich made a terrific comment that kind of went away.
67 offense, 10-yard penalty, Maine's first down.
And he's been talking, has been asked for a month now about the quarterbacks, and in his praise of Jeff Locke, he talks about leadership, and everybody says that. Everybody says their quarterback's a leader. Well, Mark Helfrich, I thought, made the proper addendum where he said, when Jeff Locke speaks now, he sees a response. That's the part, right?
That's right.
They tell you that they could be a leader, but Mark said that. He said, I see the players responding to Jeff.
And you know, the thing about being my favorite thing about leaders or a statement about leaders is leaders don't create followers. Leaders create other leaders. And that's when you know you've got, when they respond and they take things on their own initiative because the leader's doing it, that's when you know you've got the guy. Doesn't have to be rah-rah, doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be whatever example is set or said by that leader, the rest of them say, you know what? That's what we're going to do. Let's go that way.
The Oregon Ducks, they have a couple of challenging road games. They have the return game with Michigan State this year. And of course, in conference, they have to play at Arizona State and at Stanford. But there could be an awful lot of interest on September 5 here.
Yeah, I think that sets up to be an interesting game. We have a few games like that. Washington going to Boise State.
Yes.
Eastern Washington here.
And the Ducks will end up, as you can see, the nice part for them, in a year where they play 5 road, they'll play 3 of the final 4 here. They get back-to-back finish with the Trojans and then the Civil War. And in the North, we're looking to see if anybody else can surge forward to contend with the Oregon-Stanford combo. Oregon won that battle last year, but this year Stanford does the same thing. Stanford has a strange schedule where they finish with their last 3 games at home. So both teams are going to be on their home field.
Yeah, I think the North needs another power. Right now, you know, can that be Gary Anderson at Oregon State? Can he build that the way he's built other programs such as Utah State? Of course, he took over a good program at Wisconsin. Can it be Chris Peterson at Washington? Are they the one that's going to put it together? They lost a lot of people on defense. Their offensive line is a work in progress. Quarterback up in the air. So maybe this is not the year that they do it, but Chris Peterson has built teams as well. So it'll be interesting to see the North if it can become more balanced.
Well, this has been some first half for Charles Nelson, hasn't it? Bringing back two-way football.
Charles Nelson just ran 65 yards to get 4. Take a look at this. He's got guys out there, but he's got nowhere to go, and he's running the wrong way.
Well, all we did the other day was talk to Don Pelham about Charles Nelson, how he's coming along as a defensive back. And even Mark Helfrich's talked a bit about that. Here we are today seeing him. He's caught 3 passes in the first half, including a touchdown.
Had an interception, too. He's been a productive spring game warrior out here for them.
All right, the Oregon team takes over at the 23.
Here's Don Pelham. In his second year, a long-time Duck. Second year defense in one position we haven't talked about yet, but with Armstead leaving for the pros and being drafted highly, and Tony Washington gone now, it's defensive line. And he's very happy. He thinks the depth they've developed this spring on the D-line has been strong.
Yeah, you know, they losing some players along that D-line. They had to replace him. You're right. I think he's very happy with what he has. You know, Pelham's a great example of the situation to a program because there's not that constant turnover and change.
Back on this series, and again gets pretty far down the field there before they blew the whistle. He got past the first down stick.
Yeah, a little double move. He wants to get outside with this ball. There's no one there. It's well covered, but it's every route's on one side of the field. So when he takes off, he's got an open middle of the field. It's good vision, knowing where he could get to.
And now taking off there is Jalen Brown. And he's down inside the 10.
Great blocking out front for him. Jake McCreath, the tight end. Cameron Hunt, one of his big offensive linemen. They're out running in front of him. See out here, number 90, number 78, number 71 right there, Braden Eggert. All big fellas out in space moving.
Jalen Brown, like Tony Brooks-James, a scout teamer, redshirted last year.
5-yard penalty. Maine's first down.
Last year, I remember heading into the fall, Glenn, wondering, you know, which receivers, especially after Addison got hurt, you know, which receivers were going to be merged from Oregon. Where was Mariota going to have talents? And this year, the equation's totally reversed. Oregon will figure out their lead quarterback, but they have got their stable of receivers in place.
They've got great receivers, good running backs.
Addison's a quarterback today, huh?
You saw him deliver one strike.
There's a little bit of a Russell Wilson impression, and eventually finds Carrington for a touchdown. Yeah, about 150 miles north of there. Russell Wilson can see that. I've seen that before.
What's fun here is you get the idea that Coach Frost and Coach Helfrich are kind of playing with the rest of the Pac-12, showing them all this crazy stuff.
I can see why Addison, I mean, I hadn't seen this before, but Addison, he can throw the ball.
He's delivered and he's accurate. What we've seen on the run, getting hit, he's putting it where he needs to be. They ruled that an illegal forward pass. He must have crossed the line of scrimmage at some point. I thought it was pretty neat. I don't think you have to make that call.
So they picked up the flag, said the pass was fine, the touchdown stands. And it's Matt Logan adding the point.
My boy VA throwing dimes for us out here.
There we go.
Because he didn't hand the
That's
ball.
what I see. Yeah, you're right.
Because he flipped it forward. It was an illegal forward pass. Aha! Great camera work.
That is
there.
good job. That's exactly right.
To let you know, we only have a 10-minute.
I don't know. His form is lacking. He needs to get in the gym a little. He's got to do some CrossFit maybe. I don't know. But he's got to get himself in shape for all the points they're going to score.
That's a little 11 a.m. starts. You know, they're not these. When you're as good as Oregon is, you start playing a lot of night games. All right, so Jeff Locke is back on the field.
See a little issue with the snap again.
Oops. There's a little issue on the defense. And that is fully capitalized on by Nelson. Well, I'm going to stand up here and just guess a little bit. And Nelson's saying, this defensive thing, Coach, you sure? Let me show you this. Of course, that got made a little easy for him.
Yeah, your safety. What happens? Your corner comes up. Your safety's got to play. Got to insert, and he didn't. And, great job by Nelson. He might be. I think we can probably name him MVP right now. We're creeping up on half, and he's become the spring game MVP. Although Braylon Addison giving him a run for his money the way he can throw the ball.
But I wonder if Don Pelham is feeling as great about that secondary after watching this first half.
And there's the downside of spring football. As good as one side might look, it always makes you wonder about the other side of the ball.
Coming down towards halftime, again, we'll have a 10-minute pause before the second half. Here's where the Ducks defensively ranked in the conference. There you see more rankings, except for the most important one. The other ones are all middle of the pack. 2 down.
Bit of a high snap. He was able to get down with it. We're seeing problems right now on the center. That would cause some concern, and we need to work on that.
On the reception for 5 yards.
Went down here for Jalen Brown, just through the hands of the redshirt wide receiver. Ty Griffin quarterbacking this series for the Gold. Once he got, again, deep there in the secondary, whistles stopped the play.
Up to the 48, we gave a 9, and we first down.
That was a really nicely thrown ball right there out to Carrington. What you see is he puts it out into a very small window over 2 defenders and in front of 1 for Carrington here. Carrington, good job of keeping his eye on that ball. And when a defender passes between you and the ball, sometimes it's very tough to reacquire it. He did that nicely. Well thrown ball, but a good job by Carrington to come down with it.
Well, Carrington, it's funny because the Ducks just had a player, Eric Armstead, drafted first round, who was a basketball player, actually dabbled a little bit on basketball while he was here. And that's what Scott Frost was saying about Carrington, that he thinks helps Carrington as a receiver, that he's an outstanding basketball player. And use the word that you love to hear with a receiver is Carrington attacks the ball.
Yeah, you don't want a receiver, and you'll see it often, receivers wait on the ball and then a defender gets in front of it, or defenders allow the ball into their body rather than get their hands out to it. And that's a compliment for a wide receiver to say he attacks the ball. And as far as basketball, I think on high school courts across this country are a lot of good football players that think they're basketball players. If they'd only learn to come out and play some football.
Still say that. Huntington Beach, California, by Glenn Parker. Still say that. They said, how did basketball lose you?
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. Football is a calling for some of us.
Now the sun's come out now as we get just past noon in Eugene. A little bit cool this morning. It's going to get nice this afternoon.
Big good day to walk along the river back to the university.
Well, this is such a great sports complex. We can look from here. We can see batting practice taking place. Oregon and Stanford are getting ready for baseball in about 2 hours. There'll be softball later. The Ducks, powerhouse softball team. Flag there. Look at that, even on the river. That's a different sort of water sport.
Ooh.
I like that flip.
Wow. I don't think I want to do that. I'm not coming back up.
Parker usually goes on the water standing up. You're usually not seated.
Usually not seated. No, I'm not a kayaker. That is not what I do. I'd be out there fly fishing maybe. That would be fun. See that? I'd never come back up. I did that.
That's great. Trust me, that'll be an Olympic sport sometime in our life. You watch.
Isn't it already? Eugene, beautiful.
All right, well, there's the zone read, the keep to the outside, and out of bounds goes Ty Griffin. Ty Griffin from Georgia. He's got a younger brother who's entering another early admit, running back. Pretty highly regarded running back. He is not playing in today's game, but he's been part of spring ball. And that one. Trying to get the ball to Addison one more time, but that gets us to halftime in the spring game. Again, it won't be a traditional halftime. It'll just be a 10-minute break. And then the Ducks will play running time for the third and fourth quarters. 10 minutes running time each. You get the idea. Teaching moments.
Those are the moments you can't let pass up. And great coaches don't. You see Mark Elfridge right there.
And players, because again, it's not a traditional game here. The players are not leaving the field. They'll hang out. And let's go down to Jill.
So much has been made about the quarterback situation. A lot of them already playing here. What are you looking for in that group?
I think just guys rising to the occasion. I've seen all these guys do a great job in practice, but this is a little different environment, so I want to see how they react when there's a little more pressure on them.
Braylon Addison, illegal forward pass or not, if he keeps doing that out there, you might have to add him into the group. You having some fun with the play calling here today?
We're having a lot of fun on both sides of the ball. We were supposed to hand that one off, and we got away with 2 passes on that one.
Charles Nelson has been practicing primarily with the defense, of course played offense last year. You want to use him back on your side of the ball come fall?
I want him on defense right now because he's scoring on offense. Coach Lubick is being greedy and pulling him back over to the hour.
Thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it.
Ted?
Yeah, that sounds like a coach's decision. They're going to have to figure that out. But Nelson gave him something to think about. Pretty big first half. So we are at the intermission. I like it. It sounds very theatrical, does it?
It does. You are correct.
Intermission of the Oregon spring football game.
Welcome back inside Autzen Stadium. Here with me, defensive coordinator Don Pelham. What have you seen so far from your guys out there? There's been some big pass plays out there.
Well, the first thing I've seen some good hits, some good tackles, some good hits, so some good intensity. I've seen too many trick plays. I mean, really, I've seen some trick plays where we're not staying at home, not playing responsibility football, and a lot of the points are attributed to some big plays. So, moving to third quarter, we just need to play more responsibility football, play a little harder, be a little more intense on the pass rush, and not give up contain.
You lost some pretty big guys this offseason. How did you go into spring? What were the goals that you wanted to achieve?
The number one goal for our defense this spring was fundamental. So we broke it into 3 categories. It was tackling, it was striking, and it was communicating. And those are the things we talked about. And I think as spring progressed, we improved in those areas. And then every week we had a different category. 1 week was pass rush. 1 week, one week was more tackling. So, and then we had a few different packages that we're going to work on over the summer and see what they can do for us in the fall.
Well, best of luck to you and the green team here in the second half. We'll be talking to you a little later.
Yeah, thank you very much. And if we can just eliminate trick plays and tackle and take it away, we'll win.
Thank you so much. Ted, he doesn't like it down here. He wants just base football.
That's great, Jill. You get the idea, Glenn, that Don Pelham was not aware that we're going to have pitch backs and flea flickers.
Yeah, caught him by surprise a little bit.
I like that. I also like the phrase responsibility football. I thought that was a good one for a defensive coordinator because we talked about running plays we not normally see in a spring game, and it gives ideas to future opponents. It also forces their own defense to react.
Yeah, one of the things that defenses, they have to do, you have to do your job. It's your responsibility. So it's what happens sometimes, young guys, they want to do someone else's job. So they step out of their shoes to go do something else, and that's how big plays happen against defenses, trying to do too much.
Yeah. Well, I also admit to you folks, I wish the sun was shining in here. It is a gorgeous day here in the sunshine.
Yes, but that little breeze seems to be coming straight off the snow-capped Cascades. And
there's a nice moment. That's what matters. There we go. And again, Marcus Mariota making, I'm sure for him it's a labor of love, but it was a heck of an effort to go from Honolulu to Nashville to Eugene in less than 48 hours.
Yeah, obviously being with family and then getting to Nashville and having to face not just the media, but then meeting all of the staff, but then making his way back here for the spring game. A lot of players would not have made that effort, and he did, and I think that's just one more reason the people in Oregon absolutely love Marcus Mariota.
So we get back to now the second half of this game, and as you will see, but play cards. It is a running time now for the second half. Benoit, pre-indication we got was that Benoit would get a lot of work in the second half. He'll carry the load here.
Well, as you said, Royce Freeman, Thomas Steiner, they've earned their stripes. Coaches know what they can do. Austin Moloata, big defensive tackle, showing good burst and explosion. Going to be a force for them on defense in the fall.
That was Mahalik on the quarterbacking that sequence of plays. Turns the ball over. All right, well, let's get a little bit more about a great effort that's employed by the Oregon football coaches. Jill?
Yes, Coach Helfrich here today, not only celebrating the military, but also trying to raise some money for a great cause. One of the names of the teams here is Pathway, for Pathway Oregon. Can you tell everybody a little bit about that program?
Yeah, in essence, it's providing access to high achievers, that are in need, and they're all native Oregonians. So it's just a really cool way to give back to our fans that come out and support us every single day, and we're happy to be a part of it. And you probably got $250,000 on you right now, probably.
Oh, of course, for what they pay me here. I know the coaches are doing something very, very cool. You guys are going to be matching all of the donations that come in, and they aren't going to be around for very much longer. So if people want to donate, they need to start acting very soon.
Definitely go to pathway.goducks.com, and they can donate. We're going to match it through midnight tonight. So again, it's a great cause, and I know a lot of people here in attendance have donated to it. And whatever it is, $10 to $10,000, and it goes to a bunch of deserving high achievers.
Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate that.
All right, thanks, Joe.
Ted, certainly a great cause, and the coaches are going to match up to $250,000 in donations, potentially $500,000 for that program.
All right, Jill, as Addison catches that pass and their flags down, and I can't help but think, Glenn and Jill, and I'm listening to that little comment there Jill has with Mark Helfrich, and in this conference,
there are 2 fouls on the play.
Well, first we'll listen here.
Number 71 of the offense. That penalty is declined. Illegal forward pass. Number 12 of the offense. That's a 5-yard
Here's
penalty.
when you should slide. Why am I listening to the referee? Who cares? It's a spring game. Anyway, like I was saying, you know, we have a lot of schools in this conference that are in major cities, in major markets, a lot of them in professional sports markets. And when you come to Oregon, and by the way, Corvallis, I'm including in this umbrella as well, where these schools mean so much in the state, and the programs mean. And Mark Helfrich, an Oregonian, that's what I'm getting at, that he gets the connection. And the crowd here today and the atmosphere at all Oregon football games is so much a proof of the connection that this program has made with the state.
Yeah, you make a great point. In a place where people routinely come in from well over 100 miles away to get to the games, as you said, there's not a professional tie. There's not the superstar status. It truly is college football.
It really is, and it's, again, the conference is comprised of schools that have varied locations and varied demographics. I had the chance to spend some years back in another era in the Big Ten, and that's what so much coming here reminds me of, is the Big Ten, where in the Big Ten, most of the schools are state schools in places like Eugene. And there are only 1 or 2 that are in major cities, or at least the way the Big Ten was. I don't know. It's now the Big 15 or whatever,
or the B1G or whatever that is.
Lane Roseberry getting some action now. Again, this is Morgan Mahalik on the throw, and that was a nice little sprint left. An accurate throw. Caught by Taylor Stinson.
A long distance throw out there with good accuracy by Holland.
Well, we're talking about Mahalik and coming out of Kentfield, California, which is in Marin County, just north of the Golden Gate Bridge, and then Marin Catholic High School, Jared Goff. There's the program that to me is the one that to me is the wild card in the north, will be Cal. Because Goff is going to be, I think, a premier quarterback in this conference next year if they can get any defense,
you know, and
at all.
I think you might be right. Obviously, you're right. Goff is going to become. He's going to be premier. He's got a great arm. He's got a fast delivery. He can really make every single throw.
Meanwhile, Mahalik runs that in.
But can they get that defense? Can they get a little more explosive run game going? If they can do those things, take a little pressure off the offense, you're right. They might be the team that steps up.
Well, a contender is what I'm suggesting. I'm not suggesting bowl game, playoff bowl games, but to make themselves a force in the north.
Right, because right now, we know there's 2 teams that are the behemoths, and then who's going to be that next team up? That team that not only maybe beats one of the 2 top schools, but beats everybody else. Can they become that team? And it'll be fun to watch this fall to see the transition that Oregon State makes. Does Cal get a defense? Can the Huskies find a quarterback? That's all going to be, I think, those are the big questions as we move forward.
All right, Morgan Mahalik got himself a touchdown run there for the green team on this spring football day. If you've just flipped on and joined us in progress, this Oregon Spring football game, these are jerseys that were designed specifically for this day. And the players on the backs of the jerseys, you see the Fighting Ducks. You've been seeing the coaches' shirts all with the Fighting Ducks. Of course, there's a military theme to Oregon Spring football, and the Salute the State that goes across the back of each player's jersey to honor military and those who serve the state of Oregon.
Well, I think, you know, the casual observer can get caught up in all the different uniforms that they do, and they can get caught up in the flash. They don't really realize how good this team is, and that's why it's been rewarding to watch them, because they really are such a good team. It's not about all the flash. That certainly has helped with recruiting and with the national profile, but in reality, they're just a really talented team.
A lot of illusion there in the backfield, but finally the elusiveness runs out for J.J. Jones. As you see, the level at which Oregon has played. We talked early in the first half about, back to Scott Frost who said it on the phone with us the other day, that made a great point about after that first championship game when Oregon lost to Auburn and Cam Newton. As there's a nice throw down the field to Jaylen Brown. But that Oregon, Chip Kelly was adamant, really pushed. No letdown. And they talked about how Auburn had a letdown. Of course, Newton left after that, and Auburn had a letdown. They weren't the same team the next year, but Oregon fought hard to not have that happen.
That's right. And, you know, you're always the excuse, well, they lost Cam Newton. Well, think of all the quarterbacks that have come through here, and they've maintained the high level of play year to year. All the running backs that have come through, and they maintain it year to year. It's been a very impressive program in the last 10 years or better. Of course, it all started with Rich Brooks starting to build it. And it's just gotten better and better.
Oh, there's a defensive introduction. That's Jordan Kurahara.
Yeah,
he's a redshirt from Sherwood, Oregon.
That's a good morning wake-up call right there. You get hit like that.
Well, that's nice scrambling and elusiveness from Travis Johnson. Again, this is Travis Johnson now, who is an incoming freshman from Anaheim. Did get a couple of series in the first half. One thing I'm laughing as I'm thankfully with experience. Glenn Parker, sometimes you doubt me on this, but with experience, I gained just slight bits of wisdom. Slight.
I never doubt.
Enough that I remembered to bring binoculars today, because it still isn't easy to read these numbers. And the jersey schemes are not announcer friendly, nor are they supposed to be. But I'm laughing because the other night, in another walk of life, San Francisco 49ers introduced an alternate uniform that is based on the no-hit quarterback practice jersey. That's exactly what it's based on. And the players on that team decided they wanted to pursue that as an alternate jersey. Nike, which is now the NFL supplier, does this. The point I'm making is that it's going to be impossible to read the numbers on it. Fans went berserk. They absolutely loved it. And that's the reminder I'm saying, is that's what this is about, right?
That's right.
At some point, there is that element to this.
It's the fans, it's the kids. Do they get excited by it? When I was younger, I was excited by tradition. I loved the tradition of these teams.
Is that Carrington?
That was Carrington.
That is. That's Carrington who caught that for a touchdown.
Ball throwing on the run, keeps his eyes downfield. That's what you like. Young quarterback being able to do that. Kind of puts it up there, and defense needs to close on that ball. Carrington, nice job attacking the ball, as you said.
Second one by Carrington. Second catch by Carrington for a score. All right, we've got one of Oregon's big ones on the field. Jill?
Yes, Royce Freeman standing here with me now. Spring ball, a little different for you coming in now as you head into year 2.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. I mean, I feel a little bit more mature out there on the field, and I'm seeing a lot of things opening up that I didn't see last year.
Coach Frost was telling us that he's trying to figure out a way to get both you and Thomas Tyner on the field at the same time. So you're working a little bit in the slot. How's that adjustment been coming this spring?
It's an adjustment for both of us. I mean, both of us were used to being in the backfield last year, but honestly, us both being out there, I've seen a lot of threats out there, especially with all the weapons we have coming back. And it's just going to help us out even more.
Frost also said that as good as you were last year, he knows that you can become even better. What have you been working on individually?
Individually, I've just been working on just creating big runs. You got to practice making big runs to make big runs in the game. Working on leadership, and then working on just staying in the playbook. I mean, I've stayed in the playbook for a while this offseason, and it's I've seen improvement.
I hear you've been talking to Byron Marshall, trying to figure out those leadership aspects. What have you learned from him and the other guys on the team as far as to how to become a leader?
Yeah, Byron has that natural leadership ability. I mean, he's just vibrant. I mean, he's just outspoken, and everybody thrives off that. I mean, I'm just talking to him, trying to see how I can help other guys on the team, younger ones, just to improve us all.
You're still pretty young yourself, but good luck to you next year. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks.
Ted?
Well, that's good. That's one of the things, in fact, that the coaches did talk about also, is that very point that Jill made. Royce Freeman's a quiet guy. Trying to be a little less quiet. Fine line as Mahalik kept that ball for a nice game. Fine lines. You don't want him to be too chatty either, right?
No, and you know, you have to sometimes be careful what you ask for. You know, I've known guys that all of a sudden they find that voice and you wish you could keep them quiet. But he's a guy who came in last year, and we met him prior to one of the very first games of the year, and he, you know, first thing that strikes you is how thick he is. He's a thick kid. He's built well, particularly to be so young. And then he carries himself confidently. He wasn't your typical incoming freshman. Just when you talked with him, he had confidence. Now he wasn't a chatty guy, but he talked with you. He was willing to talk to you, and he was confident. He showed that on the field.
All right. 1 quarter left of the spring game in Eugene. There's a little bit of Avenger there. There's a little bit of Jason there. I'm not sure.
I just don't want to know anything about his personal life. He scares me.
It's a good, strong pair of pads, though. All right, 4th quarter, 10 minutes running time to conclude this Oregon spring football game and to conclude spring ball for the conference. Spread out. Glenn, you were telling me you were in Colorado about 2 months ago when the Buffs played their spring game.
It does seem like it's been that long, back on March 15th. But this has been an entertaining spring game. As you know, Oregon always is, but they've done a lot.
Name that we haven't mentioned was coming in there to Rodney Prevost, another one of the playmakers that Don Pelham's counting on to really be a big part of the defense this coming year. And instead, that long pass intended to Kai. Tight end Koa Kai, the intended receiver there, so that'll bring about a change of possession. And we'll get Ty Griffin back out as the quarterback for the Ducks. Got 2 touchdown catches today by Darren Carrington and 2 by Charles Nelson. Supposed to be a DB, but you heard the reference from Scott Frost, Matt Lubick.
Second time out of the half.
Has been getting a little emphasis, kind of want Charles Nelson on offense, and he's caught 5 balls today for 144.
Got a burst. He's got a burst. When he gets the ball, he can take off. Nelson is he's a weapon for him, and it's going to be interesting to see. You know, that's that battle that happens that fans of a program or fans of football don't really realize. There's a head coach, but each coordinator, they fight each other for talent. They want that kid. Let me have him on my side of the ball.
And that's a great problem, because I'm sure we're on teams. I've been around programs where they were scrambling to find guys to take a guy from one position because we need somebody at another. We have nobody that can play offensive right tackle, so we have to get a defensive guy to play there. That's what you don't want.
Yeah, that's the downside.
Yeah.
Now they don't have that problem here. They have an abundance of talent.
Now some Oregonians getting a chance. You see Jarrett Lacoste going to try to get him out in the flare pass in the backfield, out of the backfield rather, and it's incomplete. That's an old school running back build right there. You don't see too many of those right now in the game.
That's right. You know, that fullback looks like a linebacker, but you sure like him when you have him, and you need that 1 yard.
We all grew up thinking about that. Now, of course, we all understand how the game is different now. It's that pass caught by Jake McCreath. Jake McCreath, a junior from Ripon, California. But I heard this morning driving here to Autzen that I think it was either the 4th or 5th round of the NFL draft, the first fullback was chosen. And that jarred me. Ooh, and that was a jar as well. That was that ball where Carrington knew he was going to be vulnerable. It's a spring game. You hope you're not going to get smacked, but he was vulnerable to it.
Now this ball's between Carrington and the safety. You see it drift back into that safety, and Carrington knew that hit was coming.
Nice swing out there. Jaylen Brown gets a good run. It takes it across midfield. Glenn, I'd say that previous pass in today's football, is that the one that you say that's almost a necessity for a receiver? You have to make that catch.
Yes, you have to make that catch, but that's also a pass that needs to be more accurate.
Right,
you wouldn't have to do that.
Right. All right, as we continue to watch the 4th quarter here, we've got Jill down with Jeff Lockie. Jill?
Thank you so much, Ted. Jeff, what has the spring been like for you, knowing that Marcus is gone and the competition is wide open?
Yeah, it's definitely been a different feel without number 8 here. It took a little bit to get used to, but it's exciting, and it's good to be in the mix.
What do the coaches tell you? What are you trying to working on this spring?
Just being, stepping up into that leadership role. We lost a lot of big leaders last year, and kind of stepping up and being more of a vocal leader and kind of getting everybody on the same page.
You were Marcus's right-hand man for so long. What do you take? What do you learn from a guy like that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a privilege kind of being that close to him for a while, and I would just say the biggest thing he taught me is just how to handle everything that comes with being a quarterback here, whether that be success or failure. The way he went about it was pretty tough to do, and just learning that and seeing that from him was pretty cool.
Now, in this spring game, you're over on the green team, but the other side looks like they have a lot of trick plays going on. Are you a little jealous maybe of what they're doing over there?
You have to have trick plays when you're down 35-22. If Coach Frost wasn't losing by so much, he wouldn't have as many trick plays.
Overall, how has the spring been for you now, culminating with the spring game, knowing that there is a lot going on, but just trying to come out and have fun as well?
Yeah, it's been a good spring. I think I've learned a lot and gotten a lot better since the first practice, and it's going to be a lot of fun going into summer and kind of seeing how it goes in the fall camp.
Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, Jeff.
Thank you very much for having me.
Best of luck. Ted?
Jeff Lockie from Alamo, California. That's the East Bay of the Bay Area. And yeah, wingman no more. Got a chance to be the lead actor now.
Yeah, and he shows confidence on the field. Wasn't asked to do a lot. Did what he was supposed to do. I referenced that in high school he ran an offense. He showed his people that saw him in high school, said just an incredible athlete, can do it all. There's a reason he's here, and now he's got to become the guy.
Well, there's a defensive back we haven't talked about. That was Arian Springs, sophomore from San Antonio. Another one of the corners. There are kind of 4 names that the coaches mentioned that would be in the mix, and there's not going to be an EFO. There's not going to be one guy, but a combination of them that can help replace the very talented Ekpre Olumu. And he helps Springs as one of them. Cost. That's a wide carry here.
Third down 11.
So 4 quarterbacks have split, fairly well split up the day. Oh, there's a nice adjustment for an Oregon. Of course, it's an Oregon touchdown. That's Casey Eugenio on the catch.
Nice adjustment by Eugenio. That ball was thrown. Defender loses his way. Eugenio keeps his eyes towards the quarterback, so he makes that adjustment with a pretty tough catch, having to turn himself around, contort his body.
That's the whole story. Glenn Iheanacho was the defensive back, didn't know The receiver did know. Travis Johnson fired that ball out there, so
80 yards.
San Clemente, California.
My favorite town. Absolutely love San Clemente.
What is it? I've never been.
San Clemente is a small village by the sea in extreme South Orange County, and it was built as a Spanish romantic village. So white stucco, red tile roofs. It's home to a lot of surf companies in the surf industry.
Now I see. You just took a little roundabout way to get there, but now I know.
But you're very close to San Onofre, one of the top surf spots for the old guys. Of course, T Street, San Clemente State Park, great areas there. And it's a beautiful town.
Well, let's see. So we're in the final minutes of this game today. They've announced 35,800 the attendance. Just think about that. 35,800 for a spring football game. Again, an indication of Oregon football in this state.
And to know that how far you are from Portland, the metropolis that is for Oregon, so many people come down from there. They drive a long distance to come to this game, the spring game.
Interstate 5, if anybody's not familiar with Interstate 5, runs directly from Portland to Eugene, about 100 miles. When you leave a game here, I-5 is pretty much wall to wall for those 100 miles, which tells you where the bulk of the Oregon fan base is coming from.
Rosemary to the 40.
And so it'll be 4 months. It'll be almost 4 months to the day when the Ducks will next be on this field to play Eastern Washington in their season opener. Let's get another check-in from Mark Helfrich one more time. Jill?
Thank you, Ted. Coach Helfrich, looking at this game, what have you seen? What do you like?
Guys are competing, for the most part, playing hard. We're making a ton of mistakes, and especially at this point when there's a lot of new guys out there that are trying to communicate together. That we've made a bunch of mistakes, but playing hard.
We see Charles Nelson on both sides of the ball. I asked him, hey, which one do you want? He said, hey, whatever they put me out there, I'll go do. But he has that ability to play on both sides. How big of a luxury is that?
Well, it's huge, and he's fantastic in special teams as well. And he's like a kid at play, on the playground. He just wants to play, do everything. What happened? And he's really good at it, and then he's tough and smart, and so that it's a pretty good combination.
Over 35,000 fans made the journey here for the spring game. The support around this team has been tremendous from the community. I know you guys want to put on a good show for them, but what does it mean to have this kind of support?
Well, it's amazing. I mean, just again, it speaks to the passion and the pride that these people have in our program, and it's awesome. It's a great day. It's a little cold for this spring, but it's been great, and to support Food for Lane County, the military, and then this year with the scholarship program, it's great.
What will be the parting message to the guys as you guys wrap up your 15th practice of spring as you head into summer?
To constantly improve, and when spring drills end, they take over, and that's where we think our culture and our chemistry kind of prevails. And so those guys have to do a great job in the remainder of spring and throughout the summer of running the show.
Finally, one wardrobe question. You guys are looking pretty good here with the military uniforms.
Those are Nike boots.
But they are Nike boots. Would you ever wear those for a regular season game?
So I might send these to Yogi. This would be in Yogi's repertoire, I think.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and we'll be looking forward to seeing the Nike boots here come fall.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Ted?
I got to tell you,
I like that.
Yogi might be the one person I could not see.
I know. I'm not sure what Mark was getting to there. I'll tell you one thing, to see all the coaches wearing it, and I'm sitting here thinking, I can't be the first person to have thought that the Army-Navy game, right? The Army coaches should do this. Wouldn't that be cool?
That's a great idea, yeah.
I mean, just automatic. Well, Jarrett Lacoste with the long gainer there to advance that ball inside the 35. And what I also liked was Mark Helfrich's reaction when Jill was talking to him, and another incoming freshman, Alex Ofadale, got smacked. And he goes, what happened? Because he heard the ooh and he knew something. And he probably heard the hit.
Heard the hit, heard the crowd.
Yeah.
And, of course, being a coach, he wants to know, what did I miss? And as dominant as the Pathway team has been, the Oregon Gold team has a chance to put a score on the board and win this game.
They're using timeouts, trying to play this out in a real simulation. Taylor Alley is quarterbacking right now, so this is one of those moments a coach must love. Spring football, for one reason. We just saw it. Mark Helfrich just telling the officials what the rules are.
This is how we're doing
the one and only game it happens, right? In the history of football is your spring game, when the coach tells the officials what the rules are.
He's in charge. He gets to let everybody know what's going on.
So we are now told that's the last timeout. So 1:05, things will get played out here with the Gold team trying to see if they can steal one late. And that was a bad start.
Well, from third and forever,
number 90, the offense.
It keeps going.
5-yard penalty, third down. Please set the game clock to 1 minute 5 seconds. 1 minute 5 seconds.
So only third and 25 or so.
And Addison on the field. So seeing some frontline guys out there here in the Gold's last surge. Braylon Addison, who's thrown, I believe, 3 passes in this game, including a touchdown that replays indicated probably shouldn't have counted, but
it's a spring game.
They make the rules. That's a deep ball into heavy traffic. Carrington and green shirts all around him.
Fans at Oregon, always enthusiastic. You know, we've talked about just what a crowd they've got out here, but they are a passionate group.
Well, they've gotten their spring taste of football that'll carry through the summer, because it'll be September 5 when the Ducks will be back on this field against Eastern Washington, the first of 7 home games that they will play as the defending Pac-12 champions.
A lot of talent coming back, loaded on offense, have to fill some holes on defense, have to find a quarterback. But I don't think anybody doubts that the machine that Oregon's become is going to keep running right through the fall.
We saw some new faces, a whole slew, half a dozen or so incoming freshmen early admits on the field today for Oregon. The obvious question is, will they have a new quarterback? Will Vernon Adams follow through with what has been a stated plan, and will he be enrolled at Oregon and be a player for the Ducks this fall? And if so, that will put an interesting, very interesting wrinkle, of course, not just into the quarterback situation, which Mark Helfrich said this week he would like to have his starters set a week and a half to 2 weeks prior to the first game.
Yeah, so that they have continuity going in. Of course, now they're going to do their jersey exchange. They do this after every spring game. All the players will line up on one side. They'll walk across. There's a service member on the other side. You can see them coming out. Nice tradition that Oregon has put in motion here over the last few years.
No question. Absolutely the right tone for a spring football game where you're trying to get work in, trying not to show too much of what you're really going to be like in the fall. But you've got an incredible fan base that Mark Helfrich acknowledged. Give them something today, and Oregon football does that. Not only all the healthy players, we saw a couple of injured guys inside. Of course, one familiar, we never mentioned Pharaoh Brown, one very familiar name that was not a part of spring football for the Ducks. Everybody hopes that will be changed by the fall. Well, we hope you've enjoyed spring football from March through May. Pac-12 Networks ending up in the home of the conference champions. The Oregon Ducks putting on their show this afternoon thanks to our entire Pac-12 Networks team with Jill Savage and Glenn Parker heading back to the Surf. See you in September, buddy.
Good to work with you again, Ted.
And we thank you for joining